I figured this episode would be a little more light, but still light stylistically, but we're still going to go over important topic.
Very pertinent.
Yeah, that's the word. Pertinent. See if you come up with good words and you're saying you don't.
What are you talking about? You're the one who just whipped out eloquent paragraphs.
I try. But yeah, so as all of you listeners know, I am an aspiring father. I mean, there's one who wants to be a dad as a big life goal of mine.
Yep. So we'll be creating a page this is our announcement of Andrew's page where he'll be producing his own content. So send all your single females his way.
Yeah. Well, I can't be on Only Dads, so. But Paul and I were discussing this earlier, and he brought up a very good point that, if we're going to be talking about fatherhood and aspiring fatherhood, we should actually just have a conversation about being an aspiring dad. What that feels like, looks like for me right now. And so,
Here we
in
are.
a moment of weakness, I agreed. So, no, I'm actually very excited to dive into this aspect of my life. I don't really open up much about this because, well, as you'll see, there's a lot of stuff going on in my life that I'm, currently focusing on so that way I can reach this goal. So, some things more than some of the other important things that are needed to be an aspiring dad. Regardless, try to set things up to get there. So,
I mean, you're already thinking about it more than I did before when I was contemplating, unbeknownst to me, that life.
True, but you've been with Sarah how long?
This year was 5 years that we were married, and we met this will be 10 years. This May we'll have known each other for 10 years.
That's awesome. You've had, plenty of time to think about it. Maybe you just weren't realizing it. It was all in your subconsciousness.
We'll go with that.
But seriously, just to fill in a little bit about myself, you can read my About Me page where, when Paul asked me to do this podcast, there was a little bit of hesitancy because I was just like, I'm not a dad, but, thinking about it, contemplating it, it's like, I do have something to offer in the fact that I want to be one. I'm gearing my life towards that. And we wanted to offer you, our listeners, this approach for those of you who aren't and have wanted to, who are in the same boat as me. Let's keep it simple.
Mm-hmm. And you're an uncle as well, and I know it's come up in our other episodes, and it'll continue to come up. But that's obviously a big part of your life.
Yeah, a huge part of my life right now, and so they became a full-time part of my life last year. It really put into perspective my own desires, thoughts, aspirations, goals. What's another word I'm looking for? Don't know about being a dad. And what I want myself to look like, as a dad. And honestly, I don't know where to even start. Like I said, I've never really talked a lot about this besides, small conversations with you, Paul. A theme that's arisen in a couple of our episodes, I think I've brought up, here and there, is the example my own father set for me. Taking that, and he raised me to be the man I am today. So taking what he's offered me and building off of that into something even more greater, because he really set me up for being the best person, which falls in line with and our goals of the podcast. So he did an excellent job with that and giving me just instilling in me virtues, habits. I attribute my work ethic towards him because there's a man that has worked his entire life for the good of his family, and every company he's ever worked for, he's had a direct impact on their growth and profitability. So he's just someone that has a strong work ethic and gives. So yeah, like why do I want to talk about my future fatherhoodedness here? And that's like a great question. Is just to offer my perspective on fatherhood and really bring in those of you who are listening that aren't fathers that maybe you haven't started thinking about this type of stuff yet, like for good reasons, but really now's the time to start. The best time to prepare yourself. If you really want to be a father, you have to start building yourself as being a better man for yourself, for those around you, and for your future family. So that's like the big reason.
Yeah. Is that scary for you, or is it intimidating at all to be thinking about this stuff? Because if I were to put myself back in my shoes, thinking about, like, actually truly thinking about what it means to be a husband and a father, I'd probably be pretty scared. Like, I knew that I wanted to do it, but I really didn't think about the implications or anything. But I think that if I were to think about it, I'd probably find it pretty scary because it could possibly mean that I have to, like, change who I am in the moment, if that makes sense.
That makes yeah.
Do you share any of that? Does any of that resonate with you? Is it scary?
It's a great question. There are elements to it. It's like, this is a goal of mine. Am I going to be a good dad or not? Like those classic questions. Like, can I really do this? I think as you get along the line, like you realize you're going to have to change for the good, regardless if you really want to be a father or not. Like, like when you get married, there's going to be changes for me that at that point that are going to have to happen. Like I'm no longer living on my own. I'm giving myself completely to another person, and that's to me just as scary, in a sense. Like, yes, there are going to be big changes, drastic changes, and kind of going through talking about this, the way we have this podcast built, kind of like when we're talking about this stuff, like none of that's crosses my mind. It's just, I want to be a better person. Yeah. Regardless of the fact that it's for my kids or not. Like, it's just, I know I can be better. So why would it not be better?
Yeah. I mean, that really, I guess, to your point, the way this podcast has turned out to be is, how can we be better humans?
Right.
Because that's the best preparation for being a husband, for being a father, and the best way for us to show up for our kids or future kids is just to be the best versions of ourselves.
Right.
And so really, when you put it that way, it's really quite simple.
Yeah. In theory.
So just do it.
Yeah, but like when you get married, you want to offer your best self possible to your spouse, or at least the fact that you're working towards being the best. Like you're not content or complacent with where you're at in life, because my future spouse is me marrying who I am at that moment, but who I am going to be for the rest of my life. So
Yeah.
just that's like you said. In theory, it's simple. In practice, we're human. It's hard, and that's over the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of things to better myself, furthering my education, progressing in my career. And while those are all good things in and of themselves, like there's been drive that better human, that better man that I can be for a future spouse, future children. It's easy to get caught up in those things as a single guy. Like you're on a great career path, and then it's just I'm gonna ride this out.
Yeah.
Or in the last year and a half, working on my master's degree, like I haven't really given a lot of time and prioritization into getting myself out there, and with the family situation as well. There's a lot of things I may have incorrectly prioritized. If I want to be a dad, why am I not dating? Like just
Yeah. But also, I think it's a matter of, I mean, not to tell you like what to think or what is, what's in your head, but from my perspective, it's like there are chapters in our lives, right? And that was your focus and your priority.
Mhm.
Like those are helping you check boxes that will like make you that future spouse that you want to be.
Right.
So I mean, not to dissuade you or anything, but I mean, I guess that begs the question now is, okay, so like you have checked off some of those boxes, and you're on the verge of getting your master's, which is a huge accomplishment. Just a couple months away from that, and so yeah, is that something that you're working on more concertedly, or
It's the next step. Yeah. So wrapping up school's gonna open up a lot of free times, quote unquote. But it's only if I personally allow that to happen or make that conscious decision to like, okay, I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
It goes back to our talk on my purpose and self-knowledge and the need for reflection. Is just okay, getting back on track and putting the priorities where they lie. But yeah, short way to end the too long didn't read version.
Older
Is yes.
Yeah. Well, maybe what we can do is we can have everybody have their single female friends send in their applications. We'll review them. Then we can set up a date for you every night, until you find your spouse. Well, I think that's the perfect plan. Done. End the recording.
Send it to Sarah's inbox, please.
Yeah. Yeah. She's first line of sight, first line of defense. She can review. So if you get declined, it's because you didn't meet up to my wife's expectations.
But which also leads to another point, it's just while I've been in the stage of life that I have been, been I don't know, we've had this discussion, you mean, sir. Am I being too selective, too choosy? You need to have standards. So that's
Absolutely.
standards to be met.
Well, let's talk about that. What are your some of your must-haves? Your like,
I mean, the first big one? Must want kids.
yeah,
Like,
no.
well, no, just if that's the first green flag to look for. If you don't want to have kids, it goes to that really fast.
Yeah.
And it's just so.
I mean, get married first, right?
Absolutely.
Not have kids on first, not have kids on first date. Do this now.
But then there has to be some commonality among like shared interests, or shared maybe shared faith, or some type of closeness within that realm. As I'm I won't say very, but I take my faith seriously. It's an integral part of who I am. So someone that can at least understand that and challenge me to keep growing in that aspect, and in a sense, kind of share and participate in that part of my life with me. That's important. So, like the rest, I mean, that'd be cute, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, physical attraction is important.
But it's not, I think a lot of people do put a little overemphasis on that aspect of things, but it is an important you know, aspect to dating. So, yeah, I've just kind of like allowed myself to be a little bit more selective, especially like when it comes to like personality compatibility and things like that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
Someone that wants, there's got to be some of the values, like certain aspects of independence. We have our joint hobbies together that we like. I like being outdoors, but it doesn't mean we have to share everything. Those types of interests together. I don't expect my future spouse to be as interested in philosophy or biomedical ethics as I am. I like to read that type of stuff, and do research into all of that. Like we each have our own personal interests at the same time. That's what keeps, what's the words I'm looking for? But I don't even know what the word I'm looking for to describe that is. But, you know, have some commonality and then some individuality at the same time. Important. And then, yeah, someone that wants to be a mother doesn't have to be, want that stay at home mom life. I could have the stay at home dad life. Like a plus. But yeah, it's just from there, you know, personality qualities and whatnot, they just fall to just, they become kind of secondary. So as long as the relationship can grow and blossom.
Yeah. What are you, from your observations of marital relationships, what are you most looking forward to in once you get there?
Great question. Probably something I have to think of.
Besides sex.
Right. First and foremost, just someone that we challenge each other
Yeah.
to be. I alluded to that at the start of our conversation here, but someone that, continually pushes me to be the best that I can, because life is we talked about, change is scary, but there's going to be constant change in your life. And how you drive through that and towards the peak that we talked about in our purpose episode. Someone that's going to walk up the peak with me, and when I start getting winded, challenges me and helps me get through those moments. And someone that, through my life, I'm challenging them and helping them, supporting them up their difficult moments. And you share the good, share the good and the bad together.
Yeah.
But you're pushing each other to be better people.
That resonates. I mean, since I've met Sarah, that's been the case for me. I remember we were, I think, pretty early on in dating, like the second time around, a year or two in. Well, definitely before we were married. And my boss's boss came up to me. He's like, "Yeah, I've noticed a change in you since you've been dating Sarah." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess it has been." And she meant for the better.
Yeah.
But just reflecting back on, since when we've met and we've been together, yeah, my life has taken leaps and strides for the better. And I attribute a lot of that to Sarah and the person that she helps me become, and, and her support and her love and her challenging. And I hope that I do the same for her. So yeah, that resonates.
Yeah, and that's something I've noticed between you two. Something I see daily in my parents' lives. They've been married almost 50 years, and every day pushing each other to be a better person. And, that's. I mean, it's a little late in my life to be able to, but who knows? Maybe I'll live a long age. But to be able to say, I want to be able to say I've made it 50 years and we're still going strong.
Yeah. I mean, how exciting is that, though? They say it takes 10 years to become really good at what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So think if you're intentional about your marriage and your parenting,
Right.
which we're striving for here through this podcast, right? Then hit the 10-year mark, you're pros. Like, but you're learning every day, right? And you're pushing yourself, you're pushing each other. So then 50 years down the road, you're going to be freaking stars. Like,
Right.
you're just going to be crushing it.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, you'll still be pushing each other like your parents are, and striving to grow and learn every day. But I find that incredibly inspiring.
Well, yeah, and my mom, she worked, 30 years in marriage and family counseling, promoting that, a healthy marriage and family lifestyle for her work. And we would go to these events and these conventions, and I'd, go to help out. But people would come up to me and be like, "Your parents are something else.
Mm-hmm.
They're just different from all these other married couples." And so I see that, and it's just that's what I want. Looking at my younger brother and his wife, they've been married 3 years, John.
Already, wow.
2 to 3 years, yeah.
Wow.
And you see how much like they challenge each other to be better people, and to grow and to, professionally, personally, as a married couple. I think it's neat. Like when they do their finances and whatnot every quarter, they dress up in business professional and have an actual business meeting about it. They're both in the military, but they're both getting out relatively soon. And so she wants to start her own business. She's a dentist, so she wants to start her own practice. My younger brother and I want to start some side hustles too. And so it's all, like I see they talk about it, with me, because with our side hustles, it affects them in their marriage now. So it's okay. We have to have these types of talks, and, just seeing them, that's something I want too.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way. And again, I bring it back to my parents. They had such a healthy, strong love for each other and strong marriage. And that's what I like. If I can't have that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's making me think about my parents as well. I mean, it's been over 10 years since we lost my mom, but my parents' relationship and their love for each other and their support for each other definitely was an example. No, that's good stuff, dude.
So, yeah, that's like we're just scratching the surface here, but that's where I wanted to come in on, on this podcast to offer. I'm actively trying to reach this goal. You're there,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're trying to be the best husband and father possible. And so we have aspects by it. Someone that I'm really good friends with, and we disagree on a ton of stuff, but we're really good friends. Once put it's like we're both looking at the Grand Canyon. You're just on one side, I'm on the other.
Yeah.
And so we see different things, but we're seeing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Different perspectives. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we decided, we talked about like, does this make sense for us both to do it? And I think one of the things that motivated us to follow through with it is to see both of our growth along the way. Like the other podcasts out there, I mean, I think there are some younger dad ones, but most of them are a bit farther on in their daddiness.
Right.
You know, older kids, or at least they've been doing it for long enough that their kids are older.
Yeah.
And so but we're hoping that, I mean, even if it's just like journaling for ourselves to see our own personal growth, but hopefully it can help others out there as well to see, okay, and this is what you were thinking, this is what you were doing before, and just see your growth as you find a significant other, as you, God willing, have children, and then you get to go through the fun first newborn stage and the sleepless nights, and all the while like balancing that with becoming like the best version of yourself. And you know, and then for me too, like going from one kid to two kids, and then both of us comparing as we go along the way and helping each other out. I think that's really exciting and will hopefully prove helpful, like those opposing perspectives that we're talking about for those listening.
Yeah, and that I really do hope so, because I want to be able to share where I'm at in my life. And this little talk has been, one of them. Just and how I'm trying to get to where you're at, and and help those that are in the same situation. We've brought it up like this. Yes, we want to reach dads, but really we want to reach everybody, because we just want to share our journey of progression through and change to being a better person. And so having this, I don't know if there's, I mean, I know we're saying the conflicting views, but like complementary in a sense too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Two sides to the same coin.
exactly, just sharing both aspects at the same time, getting input. We've brought up many times how my 5 nieces and nephews, are in my life full time, and how that's preparing me for being a father. And if you think two is, there's 5, where the youngest is, I think, a few months older than Evie.
Yeah.
And then the oldest is 12.
Yeah.
Like, or 11. And so it's a fun household, but it's having to be an involved uncle isn't. It's fun. I love it. Wouldn't trade it. Of course, I trade the scenario, the circumstances, just for their benefit. But it's helped me a lot to find out, okay, this is how I would parent, rather, understanding like what my parenting style thoughts align with, like my own personal philosophy.
Yes.
And go from there. And, being an uncle, I get to kind of use some of those. I mean, we've talked about how I like to practice the Socratic method to help them, reason through their own difficulties, or helping them discover the answer on their quote unquote own, rather than giving the answer, because that's how I am. Like, I hate when people just like, here's what you need. It's just, if you tell me where to find something at work, take my job for example. It's, hey, where in policy can I find this? And they say it's in this program or in this policy. If they don't just say, I tell them, like, don't tell me what it says. Like, I need to go through and read it to see how exactly it fits.
Yeah.
So just tell me where in the policy it talks about it, so that way I can understand how this all fits into the cases that I'm working on. And so I like to practice that as an uncle. It's just, okay, I think we talked in the last episode how, you can't just be hitting your sister. Like, why, ask them, like, why can't you hit your sister? Why is it bad to hit your sister? And then just getting them to think about that and come to the conclusion, rather than say, it's wrong and it's bad, now you have to go to your room.
Yeah. Get a man a fish, feed him for a day. Teach a man a fish, feed him for a lifetime.
Yeah. And it gives them a chance to talk to them about emotions a little bit too, on their level.
Yeah.
So you talk to them. It's okay. What were you feeling inside here? I point to their heart, like when this happened, and was anything going on up here? And I'll point to their head, just to help them differentiate.
Yeah.
You have your emotions, and it's perfectly fine. I'll tell them
like
it's
that.
perfectly fine for you to feel angry at your sister because she's annoying you.
Yeah.
What you decide next, like, how did you come to the conclusion to hit her? It's okay. So what? And I won't tell them like what they should do unless it's not get through.
Yeah.
It's okay. So what are other options? What do you think would have been better routes to take? And you have them sit there for they'll sit there for a second, think about it. Well, I could have done this, and you could have, but I still don't think that's the best option. So I'm slowly discovering like how I want to be as a father just through these circumstances, and it's giving me fuel for this podcast, giving me fuel for my own expectations.
Yeah. What great training ground.
Right.
Like you said, unfortunate circumstances, but yeah, when it comes to it, you're going to be a hell of a dad.
I'd like to hope so. So, yeah, and then all these habits that we're going to be talking about, we're going to be, how can I live these as a single man? How these fit into my life as a father? I think you and I have been taking on some of the more crucial and important universal habits that if we kind of take for granted as, well, yeah, I know I should have grit, or I should be building this habit, or knowing how to build, just the fact of knowing how to build a habit. You know, that, yeah, we kind of do take some of those for granted. So I think, placing the emphasis on those from both of our perspectives is very important. You're talking about it as a father, and here I am saying, like, as a single guy, start now, because it's only going to get harder the farther life goes on.
Yeah. And then at the same time, that starting now doesn't mean like you had to radically change the way you're led. It's like just live with a little bit more intentionality, because by being the best version of yourself, that's going to be the best preparation. And tune into our episode about purpose, and this will make even more sense. And you think about, okay, how does this fit into my purpose? How does fatherhood or being a husband fit into my purpose?
Exactly.
Because if it's something you want to do or are contemplating, like, it should be something
Absolutely
to tie into your purpose.
Yeah, it should be on your mind. It should be. You're right. There's really not much more you can add to what you just said. So yeah, this is. I'm trying to really give all the value I possibly have to
And do a fine job at it.
Through being an aspiring dad and actively wanting that, trying to go reach that dream. Like, it's not easy, but no one's life is. And if people tell me their life is easy, then they're doing. To me, I think they're doing something wrong. But that's my personal opinion.
Or they're lying.
We're gonna have those easy moments where things are just clicking right. But if you're in my situation, like, finding that Mrs. Right, that's the hard part.
Yeah, it is. And then it comes with so many scary elements, because you're locking yourself in. If you subscribe to a traditional approach, we both do, and advocate for. But yes, the rest of your life. But if you find the right person and you commit to it, it becomes a beautiful thing, not a scary thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just like quick overview of what being an aspiring dad looks, at least from where I am in my life. Like you said, there's those tougher elements to think about, and then prioritizing what needs to be prioritized. But the key is to not stop working on yourself to being the better person that you need to be, that you want to be. Start working towards where you want to be now. And for you religious people out there like me, I have a little mantra that I say: work as if everything in the world depends on me. Because no one else is going to do the work. Not even God. But then pray like everything depends on him. So, because we're, again, coming back to it, the only change that I'm going to have is what I drive and what I decide and what, where I find that fulfillment and that purpose, wanting to reach that, having the grit to get through it. So it is all on me to get to where I want to be, to do all that. So,
well, we can talk offline about what your game plan is and just line up those speed dates.
Yeah.
But
quick overview of what it looks like to be an aspiring dad. I hope I've inspired some of you out there to share your thoughts with us.
I'm curious. I'm really curious. Yeah, what I wish I could get in my brain, if I could remember what was going through my brain, 5 years ago before we got married, and then 10 years ago before we started dating seriously.
Right.
Or, even got to know each other. But yeah, send us your questions
and your thoughts. What helps you? We want another big goal that I've had now from this perspective is just to build a solid community and camaraderie amongst dads and those that seasoned veterans, brand new ones, and those trying to figure out if this life is for them. So we all have somewhere to share, somewhere to discuss, somewhere to list, and someone to we can go to listen to us.
Yeah. And we've got a Facebook profile, so that's the first stop for anybody.
Yeah.
Who wants to.
We got our our website. Reach out to us, and we'll go through some of these insights, questions, thoughts in our future episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, quick overview. We can come back to this topic sometime at a later date when I have even more thoughts about it. But
thanks, Andrew.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I do want to say thank you all for tuning in. It's a little bit off the path of what we normally do, but wanted to share those thoughts and what's going on in my brain while I think about being an inspiring dad. And so, again, I encourage all of you aspiring dads to just take into self-reflection about the change that you need, how you're going to accomplish that. Find the way that you can apply that to be a better man that you want. Yeah, so from all of us here at the Why Dad Podcast, continue to subscribe, and follow. And again, all that feedback is important to us. It drives us to where we want to go and what you as listeners want to and need to hear. So
it helps us consider things that maybe we wouldn't otherwise consider, or pull threads that need pulling.
Exactly. So, till next time, thank you, everyone.